Hey, what's going on, y'all? I'm Twitch, and welcome to another edition of Lab Rats Culture, and I am so excited for our guest today. Our guest today has over 20 years experience working in the industry. And one of the key words that I think about when I think about our next guest is versatile. She is one of the most versatile artists that I know. She's been working in the industry since she was 7 years old, but when I met her, it was a show called Star Search in the early 2000s. The group she was in was named Tap Sounds Underground. And little did I know that she wasn't just a tapper, because I would soon find out a little later that she had just left the shoot of the Busta Rhymes video. It was the Pass the Cavassier video. Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so it was this introduction I'm about to give right now, guys. You need to realize the gravity of the artist that you're about to be introduced to right now. If you already don't know what's going on, so heavy. In fact, I'm grabbing the notebook. You know, so I met her doing Star Search. Okay, but over time, I would soon come to find out that she is one of the industry's most sought after talents in front and behind the camera. She's worked with over 60 artists. 60 artists, y'all. Just to name a few, this Janet, Justin Bieber, Britney Spears, Usher, Chris Brown, Neo, Miley Cyrus, Rihanna, the list goes on, y'all. She has producing credits for America's Got Talent, The Voice, Disney Channel. She's worked in the theater, where she's been an associate choreographer for the revival of Broadway's hit show Dreamgirls, and a choreographer for a new musical. Is that right? A new musical called Higher Education. Credits also include the Oscars. What? Original Hulu series, LXD.
Yeah.
TED Talks. And y'all, the expansion continues and continues, because now all of this experience, all of this expertise, she's put together in a perfectly beautiful gift wrap situation named as the Galen Hooks method. I am talking about Galen Hooks. Galen Hooks, welcome to the lab. Thank you so much for coming. I know it's like,
for having me.
Is it weird to just sit there and be like, yo, I have done all of that?
It feels very weird to be talked about.
Right.
But
Listen,
thanks for having me.
The experience is so extensive, and there's a lot that I want to get into. But first, could you just take us through, could you paint a picture of your childhood for us? I know that you are an LA native. But
yes.
what I'm looking for here is what Galen Hooks' childhood was like, given you started working when you were 7. So how did you get introduced to the arts? And kind of walk us through that for a second.
Yeah, I have an older sister who's a few years older than me, who was put into dance classes by my mom when she was little. So I followed in her footsteps when I was 3, I think, doing jazz, tap, and ballet.
Nice, of course.
There was like no hip hop
right?
there. We didn't wear tennis. I remember the first time I wore tennis shoes in a dance class, I was like, we're allowed to do this. It was such a big deal because everything was so technical.
Right.
But I think my childhood was, usually when you think of childhood, you think of like the balance between school and family time. And I think for people that work in the industry, I went to school as a child until I was in high school. I started to do more independent study, which is a little different than homeschooling, because independent study, you teach yourself. So you don't have a teacher at home with you, whether it's your parent or a different teacher, but you literally just get the curriculum and teach yourself.
Right.
But when I was a little kid, working when I was like starting at 7, I missed a lot of school. I was traveling a lot and working a lot and shooting a lot. And I think that alienated me a little bit socially at school, but I didn't really mind. I had like my friends that were my close friends at school who, thought it was cool that I was on TV and in commercials and whatever, but didn't really care in a good way,
Right.
But certainly I was the kid that was in the Mervyn's commercial or whatever. So that's kind of like the difference that my childhood was compared to other people that went to school with me. And I had a completely separate life of my closest friends were from dance. So, so school to me was just something that, I think for most kids, it's like you go to school and that's kind of where your bubble is.
Right,
but for me, my bubble was in dance, and school was like, I go to school to learn, and I loved school. And that's why I went to college, because I loved it, and it wasn't necessarily as a backup plan or in case there wasn't a plan B. It was because I love learning and I love academia. And so school for me was
to the adage, like always a student.
Always a student. Even to this day, when I'm pushing myself to learn new things, that's when I'm really stimulated, and I can't stop talking about things that I've learned, and I love that. So school for me, I loved it, which is also kind of not like most people hate school, but I loved. So school to me was about learning and not about socializing and not about joining social clubs and stuff like that. I really loved the school part of it. So my whole bubble of friends was from the dance world. That's amazing. Which was interesting because they were all from different places. Normally like your friends growing up are that you live down the street from them or something, but we lived 2 hours apart from each other sometimes. So it was a different kind of circle of friends.
Which speaks to a lot though, because Galen, listen, you know how to do a lot, by the way. Okay, but aside from choreographing and dancing, you've also directed, produced. It seems like you really are just a sponge, and it makes so much sense because with all of the work that you've been doing, you've been taking in this knowledge and then being able to put it back out. So what was the first job? What was your first professional job? And was that the job that helped you make the decision, this is what I want to do? Or was it another one?
Do you mean even when I was
when
you little?
Yeah, your first.
Gosh, I don't even.
No, I'm not saying like a diaper commercial. If it was a diaper, no.
Yeah, but when I was a kid.
Yes.
I remember my first music video was for Montel Jordan. I was a little kid. If you go on YouTube, it's still there. It's called Daddy's Home, and I'm just a little girl at a flashback at a birthday party. I'm not dancing in it, but that was my first music video. My first job, I'm not quite sure, but there was a movie called Mrs. Santa Claus that Angela Lansbury played Mrs. Santa Claus, and that job is actually, when I look back on that, Rob Marshall choreographed it, which is I think Rob Marshall. I might have been 8 or 9, and now when I think about that, I got the chance to work with Rob Marshall when I was that age, and we were playing kids in a toy factory, and I remember getting yelled at. I don't know what for, but I had this nutcracker kind of thing, and I think I did something wrong with the nutcracker, and he came over and yelled at me. So I have this awful I don't like letting people down, but that was my memory of Rob Marshall. But Kevin Tancherone was in that, who is a director nowadays, an incredible TV director. And he directed Fame, the Fame remake when he was really young, and I danced with him growing up. Tyler Peck was in that movie, who is one of the most prolific ballerinas today from New York City Ballet. There's all these people that were in that film, and we were all little kids. And so that's one of the earlier big jobs I can think of where it was with a lot of dancers with a super legit choreographer. Right. But I, in terms of the question of what kind of was the decision that pushed me. Because I always kind of think, especially meeting people that aren't from LA that have to make that decision of, do I want to be a professional dancer? And you have to leave behind things and move to LA and leave your family or leave school or whatever it is. And I never had that decision that happen. But what I realized is that kind of job to job, every job I did when I was a kid, every audition I went to, I was making that calculation without realizing it, because there's so many people that I grew up dancing with, working with, who worked way more than me when I was a kid, who don't do it anymore. Right. So I must have liked it, because as a kid, when you don't like something, you make it known. I don't think I was aware enough or mature enough to go, this is the direction I want to go in. But certainly if I hadn't liked it, then I would have been crying to my mom every day saying I don't want to do this.
So it was just more of it was just you were already kind of in love with what you were doing anyway. So there was never really a question of or better yet, maybe not even a decision of I'm going to keep doing this because you just love doing it anyway.
I think they were just kind of like literally every single job was a decision to keep going and to not say I don't like this anymore.
Got it.
I don't think I realized it, but yeah, I think every time I did a job, it was, oh, that was really fun. That was a challenge because I also liked the challenge of it. I liked the challenge of learning choreography and having to do it correctly and all that stuff as a kid. So that I think I subconsciously left every job feeling like I want to do this more.
Now, as these jobs continue to roll in, and you got to work with many different artists, many different people. Who were some of the icons and the idols that you looked up to that you eventually were able to work with, and what was that like? And I know that that's a kind of a broad question because you have worked with a lot of people, but what I'm trying to picture is someone that is coming up in their youth, working with the top of the line dancers, choreographers. These are people that when I was in Alabama, before I even came to California, I've seen all of this stuff. I've probably seen everything that you've done. You know what I mean? and didn't even know that you were doing it. So what was it like coming up and just being able to work with top caliber choreographers? Who were some of those people?
The obvious ones that are kind of like that I spent the most time with, that people I think associate with me from that know me when I was a kid, are Marguerite Derricks and Michael Rooney, because they had a dance company that I was in, again with Kevin Tancheron and Tyler Peck and these people that have gone on to do incredible things. They had the longest impact on my life because it was in an actual company. But if I go even further back, I was taking class at the Edge when I was, I think, 9 or 10. I started taking my first classes at Edge. So the teachers in that room, I think now I value and am so grateful to have had exposure to them that might not be as big of names as Marguerite or Michael Rooney, but they molded me just as much. And I think now that we see in today's world how influential teachers are, it helps me realize that maybe resume-wise they weren't Michael or Marguerite, but they are just as valuable. And so for me, having Andre Fuentes, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
People like him, not that Andre doesn't have an incredible resume, but people, I think I don't, when I initially think of my bio, I think Marguerite and Michael Rooney because I was in a company with them, but then I'm realizing I took Andre's class religiously.
Right.
Chris Dupre religiously, Greg Russell religiously, Eddie Garcia, all of these people that, nowadays their names are around, and I hope people realize how much knowledge they have and how much they built a lot of the dancers that people look up to today.
Absolutely.
But then, so that was like as training wise. Work wise, Fatima, I worked with. I think I did my first commercial with her when I was 14 or 13. She didn't remember my name after that. She I tell people.
Shout out Fatima. She does. Yeah, she does a lot. She does a lot.
I talk about Fatima a lot when I give advice to people because I was auditioning for her. Fatima was the top of the top back then.
Course,
she's been the top of the top.
Still is.
Forever.
Right.
But she was the top of the top back then when I was a kid, and I was auditioning for her all the time and never would book anything. She would cut me all the time. And I kept going and kept going and kept going and would just get cut, and my mom was just like, let's just go. Still, like, every time I'd get a call, we'd be like, let's just go. You don't have anything else to do.
Right.
While everyone else was going, she never hires me. She always picks the same people. I'm not going to the audition. It's a waste of time. She has her favorites,
Right.
So they wouldn't go, and I'm like, well, how do you expect to work with her if you don't go audition?
Exactly.
So eventually she ended up hiring me, and I remember her telling me, I remember you from all those auditions, you just weren't ready yet. And Fatima has become somebody. She gave me my first choreography job where I was hired as a choreographer, not assisting anybody, not an associate, but as a choreographer. She hired me countless times as a dancer, and has passed me so much choreography work. And none of that would have happened if I had gone, she doesn't hire me, she's got her favorites, and been cynical about it. So
absolutely.
Anyways, that's digressing. But Fatima, Jamie King from a very young age. Brian Friedman. I've known Brian from when I was probably 11 or something. Is the first time I met Brian. I was in Austin Powers with him when I was 15. And partly what I'll say is those people also, watching them dance, people like Brian and Andre, and seeing them in a class environment, I think is also because part of the question you were asking is like who I was idolizing and looking up to. And for me, there were dancers to be in the room with fully fleshed, adult, mature
seasoned dancers
in class consistently. I don't take that for granted a second of the day now that I see what class is like now, that I was able to be around those people at such a young age, seeing them train day in and day out, and to just be surrounded like that, especially for women. There were so many women that if I look back, and this is, of course, I'm biased, but if I look back at music videos and award shows and tours from those days when I was kind of coming up, the dancers just look different. They look like they're adults. Because they were. Not just age-wise, but just maturity-wise and professionalism-wise. So the fact that I got to be in class with them that meant more to me than, I mean, obviously it's a huge deal to work with Fatima, but the reason that it was exciting to work with Fatima is because, dancer XYZ have worked with Fatima.
Absolutely. You get to work with Swoop and Ed Moore.
Oh my gosh. So it was really, it's like a holistic thing, not just, and I think that's also, people have this kind of idea of choreographers nowadays, but for me it was really the dancers in conjunction with the choreographers. Everything was just, there was a level of professionalism that
I love that's a perfect segue into what I'm about to ask right now. So let's expand on that just a little bit, because the truth of the matter is that the landscape is different now, whether it be on a professional job or in the classroom. But right now, I'd like to ask you about the differences in the classroom right now from dancer and teacher.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I'm reiterating some stuff that Brian Friedman talked about in my interview with Brian in the masterclass series that we were talking about. So that was 5 years ago. This is something that like people have been harping on and on about since the dawn of YouTube, basically. But and I don't I know my opinions about it are not gripes about it. I feel like a lot of people want to know what it was like back in the day, because there are a lot of dancers who are mature adults who don't have resources right now, and they want to know, not because we're complaining about, well, back in the day it was like this, but because they really want more than what's being offered right now. So everything I'm about to say is not necessarily a gripe, but it's to inform people and educate people, because there isn't really a history or documentation of what classes were like back then. To nowadays, one major thing, because I've been teaching so much more recently all over the world and seeing the commonalities and what's happening. And what happens overseas, what happens out of state, is so highly influenced by how classes are run in LA. Because the people that teach overseas and out of state are coming to LA to be in the scene, and they see how people teach here, and they think that that's how you're supposed to teach.
You're supposed to teach, right?
So they leave and go back to wherever they're from, and then this whole class culture is permeating just globally. And one major thing that has been frustrating for me lately that I posted about, because I'm like, if nobody says anything, how are the students supposed to know? But it's just kind of class etiquette, which sounds so basic, but students just don't know. So if nobody's telling you, you shouldn't go sit in front of the mirror and block people that are dancing when we're in groups, or you shouldn't pull your phone out to have somebody film you going in groups and it's a stranger and you're going, can you film me in groups? And it's like, that stranger's trying to train. They're not here to film you. Or just not paying attention, and that sounds so basic, but if I'm intentionally going into such detail when I teach of where your weight change is supposed to be, how you're supposed to transition from one move to the next, what the intention is, the technique behind it, and then somebody asks a question that's something that I just went over for like 5 minutes. And so, but there's just a general class culture that I think is preventing people from growing as much as they could if they knew how to properly take class. And so a lot of I mean, my class, it's ironic because I think people are taking my class because they've seen the videos on YouTube, but my class is not about the choreography. So what's really freed me up is being able to teach the same routine over and over, city after city, country after country, teaching the same combo because people are excited about that combo. But for me, that frees me up to talk about all of this other stuff because they're not stuck on, oh gosh, what is this? What are the counts on this part? Because they're already familiar with the combo. So we get the routine out, and then I can really push them artistically and creatively and technically because we've got the combo out so quickly that we can spend all this time on other things, and I can talk about things like how to take class because there's time for it.
Right. Which I think is incredibly important. I think it's really important, especially for those that are watching slash listening. You know, if she's saying names that you've never heard of, or maybe that you have heard of and you're not that familiar with it, YouTube and just the internet in general is an incredible tool when it comes to these things. And I think it is kind of an epidemic what's happening right now, because as visible as dance is right now and as quick as you can get it, it also comes with a certain set of cons as well. And those are a couple of things that you've spoken to, and I absolutely agree with. But the question is, what is the responsibility of those that do know better right now? What is the responsibility of a teacher that is teaching those that are aspiring to be professional? And the reason I ask this is because I believe you cover this in the Galen Hooks method, whether it be any drop down of the various classes that they can take within the method. And this method is intense, y'all. It's not just come in and learn choreography. They have an on camera situation, how to act on set, you know, which is just priceless information. But the question is, though, what is the responsibility of a teacher that is teaching aspiring students?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that's been debated at length via Facebook all the time.
Shout out Facebook.
Shout out Facebook. But not everybody, number one, knows what to fix. So part of the problem is you've got like different tiers of teachers, and now I just consider the tier that is social media based, where because I mean obviously like I've meshed into being social media based, but there's the difference between that and making your living off of class videos and off of teaching. Right. So you really need the view. You like there that I consider that just a different industry now, where it's like I don't expect those people to take responsibility to bring up the new generation because they don't know how. So how can I expect them to like be guiding these people because they don't know the information? So if I were them, I'd be like maybe they can, if they see something class etiquette wise that is out of line, they can say something. But in terms of really digging in and training people properly outside of teaching a routine, or maybe it's even within teaching the routine, they don't even know what weight change is. They don't know how to use your plie. They don't know what a plie is. So I can't expect them to take responsibility in those regards because they don't know. So I don't fault them. That doesn't mean that I don't think it's any less tragic that those are the people teaching kids right now, but there's nothing that they can pull from it's not like they have this whole bag of information that they're withholding. I think they don't even have the bag of information. Exactly. Anyways, but there's another tier of people who really do have a lot of information, like Brian Friedman. Like how knowledgeable is that guy? Absolutely. But I think he really you can, as much as he is on social media, and I don't mean to be speaking for Brian, but I hope I'm accurate in saying like he really is passionate about teaching. Right. Absolutely. And I'm sure gives a lot of information that someone who's not as senior as him wouldn't know. So if it were him, I would think like, if he knows the information, I would hold him accountable and think like, you have a responsibility to teach people. I think they're just the popular classes. There are a lot of teachers who are taking that responsibility who don't have popular classes. Right. So.
And is that effective?
In actually teaching people, do you mean?
Well, I mean, so the people that don't have the popular classes also means that the viewership is down, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is this, and for this reason, because is the notion that one view is better than none, is that relevant when it comes to teachers that may have all of this knowledge bank but zero views, right? So do you think it is effective for them to go ahead and start trying to put that stuff out where they might only get realistically 13, 23 views, maybe, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think people should be putting out anything for getting 1 million views.
Right.
You know, I'm not putting out stuff to get 1 million views.
Right.
I'm putting out stuff to share what I do. And whether if it's 13 people viewing it, those 13 people have viewed it. You know, I don't think that should dissuade anybody from putting their work out if they want to put it out. So because a lot of teachers are camera shy and social media shy who are of an older school mentality, or maybe they're younger and they just don't want to fall into that trap.
Right.
And that's they whatever they do in that room with the students who attend their class in person is effective.
Right.
And that's their job as a teacher, is to teach people. So if whether they want to expand that out or not, I think is, for me, all I can't expect anybody, I can't like dictate what people should do in their classes, but as long as in the room, and this is where it kind of flips, you can have 20 million people view a class video and the people in the room didn't learn jack.
You're right.
So if I would rather those people that don't have any views, but they're really teaching 20 people, the 10 people that are in their class, whatever, something, to me that's more valuable than watching, having 20 million eyes on something that's not even teaching the people in the room.
Which also brings up an interesting question too. So in that regard, what is a student's responsibility?
So that's a really good question, because
I hate saying listen up, but listen up right now, y'all. Please listen, please.
Well, one way that this was put to me that clicked so much is that students are voting with their money. So if you go to class and the class is sold out in 30 seconds for somebody that's not really teaching, the students are still voting with their money. So if the students have more power than they think. The dance studios aren't just picking people to teach randomly. They're gonna have, if somebody's class is selling out in 2 seconds after it's posted, they're gonna have that person teach. So if as a community you're like, you know what, the class environment isn't right now, I'm not learning anything, I'm tired of people filming for 45 minutes at the end, whatever. If all of the students said, we aren't okay with this, and nobody showed up to those classes, I guarantee you those classes wouldn't be happening as often.
Absolutely.
So, and vice versa, if the students aren't voting with their money for the people that really have a lot of knowledge, then those teachers aren't going to have as much incentive to teach as often, and the studios aren't going to push them as much.
Absolutely.
So I would say, like, a student's responsibility outside of just the classroom is to go, we want real education. So I'm going to show up to the classes where it might not be somebody that's as popular, but let's pack this class so that this teacher teaches more and is asked to teach on this convention and is asked to travel to this country. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise,
100%.
those people fall to the wayside because the students are going for what's shiny.
Absolutely. Got it. Yeah, the shiny distraction, 100%.
Yeah. So I don't know if, do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree. And the thing is that it's just such, it's such a debate right now, such a debate, and that's kind of all that it is. That's only from where I see, it's the only action that's really being taken is us actually talking about it right now. Do you know what I mean? Because with the popularity and all of that, I'm hearing a lot, especially from the OGs. It's hard for them right now. You know what I mean? Here, especially in the States. I feel like overseas, it's a little different because they're a little more hungry for the knowledge and they have more respect for it.
Yeah.
But here it's tough because you also know what it is to start and run a business, right?
Yeah.
So what makes the most sense? Am I going to hire the person that's going to bring in the numbers, even though morally I'm thinking like, maybe I don't know if they're a great teacher, but I know that people are going to come if
Exactly.
you know what I mean, which is going to cover my mortgage for this month, blah
exactly.
blah blah, right? So I think that's it's a very, very sensitive area, sensitive territory to tread on.
When you say it's hard for the OGs, do you mean like emotionally it's been hard for them, or just economically?
Both.
Okay.
Both. And I can't speak for all of them. And I also know that overseas they're very well respected overseas. Yeah. I'm talking about here, and the reason I say that too is just
especially
from,
in LA, not even just the States,
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just the street scene in general is just, as far as a mainstream culture goes, foundation is something that's not really,
it doesn't
exist. That it doesn't really, they're not worried about that. So that's why I say it is hard for the OGs right now, because it's like this. Am I trying to learn something wildly popular that, I'm probably going to hear on the radio when I go home, and now I have a routine to it? Or am I going to learn, like, this is how you correctly stop. This is how you you know what I mean? It's in this very fast-paced society, a lot of the things that take a lot of time to get and you have to practice on, like foundation, they kind of get shunned. They want it quicker.
Yeah.
Which also, I want to ask this too. We're just going to backtrack a little bit here, but it's kind of in the same vein. With all of the experience that you had coming up working professionally, when was the moment that you started making more conscious and strategic efforts to the work that you were doing, right?
Like in job choices.
In job choices, yes.
But wait, before I forget to say this, I have been teaching for so long, and I used to teach at Debbie Reynolds, and my class would get canceled because no one would show up. Like, that's how empty it was. It wasn't even like, I only had 20 people. Like, 20 was a packed class for me.
Right.
I literally would have 2 people show up and have to cancel class for a long time.
Right.
So, wow. But if you like to teach, like for me, it was just about teaching. So I just want to mention that, because it's not like I don't know what it's like to not be popular.
Right, of course.
Because that was the majority of my teaching career was praying that people were going to show up so that it wouldn't get canceled.
Right.
But anyways, job-wise, like, I think it also surprises me when I hear people say what their goals are when they're like, I want to do, I don't know, they're picking and choosing before booking anything.
Got it, yeah.
And for me as dancers, like, I don't think there was a time where I was like, I'm going to really pick and choose as a dancer, because we don't have the liberty to do that. We're not making millions of dollars where it's like, this next film, I want to go in this direction. It's like, you just do what comes. I think, like, more so what it was for me is like, and dancers out there will know this, new artist, low budget, super but those kinds of things, like after you get to a certain level, you're like, I don't need to do that, or I'm not available to do that. I think that's more so what it was, is I would shoot for the stars, and if I booked those big jobs, then I wasn't available to do the lower level things. So you just kind of triage things out and go like, okay, like let's say the Michael Jackson audition. I was like, and I wasn't even dancing at that time for This Is It.
Right.
I already was like done dancing, and I was like, I am going to like book myself out for, because nobody knew when the audition was coming, and I was like, I'm booking myself out for padding like a month before and after whenever I think that audition's happening, so that I can go to that audition, because I will be so mad if I don't go to that audition, to experience it, not even to book the job, but just to experience it. And I like, when you have priorities straight like that, when you're like, this is really important to me, you make those things happen. So I guess it's less like a thought of, I don't want to do these kinds of jobs, and more so my eyes are on the prize with this, so I need to make that happen, which means, oh shoot, I can't do that. I need to do this job. So I kind of don't think of myself as much like there weren't so much. It wasn't so much strategic. Like,
Got it.
I was making. Do you know what I mean? Because everything that comes your way, you never know. There are so many jobs I did free jobs too. Every carnival I did, I mean, there are tons of like live free gigs like that existed back then that where people would come out and I would do free things all the time that I just loved to do, but those would lead to jobs. So there are a lot of lower level jobs where I might have been like, this isn't exactly the dream artist and this isn't exactly the dream budget or the dream experience, but I'm going to do it because I know that I will get experience working with this director, or I know that I haven't worked with this choreographer before and I want to. And there's always a reason to do things that you normally would write off super quickly that will pay off somewhere in the future, dance wise.
Absolutely. Now with so much to work with in your wheelhouse, also going back to you, I mean, with the love of education, being a student, can you speak to people that are at the crossroads of going to school or pursuing a dance career?
Yeah.
And I think that you're so capable of talking about this because also, guys, she has a BA in law. Did I forget that in the intro? Yeah. So please, by all means.
Yeah. Like I said before, I love school. I miss it a lot. And the likelihood is if you're listening to this, you don't like school, because most people don't like school. But if you like it enough that you're actually debating whether to pursue a career or not, it's difficult as dancers because we have to get in while we're young, and you can't, like, a year that you wait going to school is like 20 years dance-wise. So nowadays there are so many options for taking classes online, getting degrees online. I got mine majority online. I was a philosophy major first, going physically to school, and then I transferred to law doing mostly online. So the thing is, you have to have a lot of self-discipline to pursue both at the same time. But if you're listening to this and you're going, I care enough about each of these things where I want to be a dancer, but I also want an education, if it's that important to you, you'll make it happen. There's so much downtime in rehearsals, on set, when you're traveling, when you're on tour buses, when you're doing all of these things. There's so much downtime. I mean, if you know, it's like if you do a music video or if you're doing a TV show or a film, your call time is at 6 a.m. You might be in hair and makeup and sitting in your trailer for 3 hours before you're called to set. That was the time when I was studying. So I was doing homework when I did the Super Bowl with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. I was studying in rehearsals. When I was on tour with Snoop and Christina Milian and doing promo for Janet and doing all this stuff, I was with Neo. I was studying on the tour bus, and after shows I would go to the hotel and study, and on flights I would study and mail in midterms and finals from Africa and Iceland. And like, if you really like to do it, you'll do it. So point being, you don't necessarily have to sacrifice one for the other, especially nowadays, because that was a while ago where, you know, online courses were not as easy, not as well structured, and now I can't imagine nowadays how much easier it would be. So for me, especially if you're going to transition into anything on the production end, something as simple, even when I'm looking for assistance, something as simple as writing an email, it helps so much when you have people that have some sort of formal education for things where you need emails rattled off, you need decks written, you need treatments written, you need phone calls to be made where you just need somebody that, not to say that you have to go to college to have those assets, but you can, don't feel like you're getting a degree is just for the fallback if dance doesn't work, but that those skills will come in super handy when you're reading contracts and when you're all of those kinds of things. It will help so much. Certainly for me, getting a law degree and doing critical thinking courses and doing all that stuff, anytime I see any contract or paperwork, I'm questioning it. So yes, so if you're interested in education, it can help you even in your dance career. And a lot of people ask about dance majors in college, and this is not like a bash on dance schools, but you definitely don't need a dance degree to become a professional dancer. So if you're passionate about science or math or business or event planning or whatever it is outside of dance, go get your degree in those things, because you can do both, and you'll feel so much better for it afterwards.
Very much so. See, I love all of that, because that, I mean, as you know, that's an ongoing thing. I feel like that's one of the number one questions from both students and parents whether to go to college or the professional route, and that is one of the best explanations I've had with that. Also, just step your life up, y'all. Like I'm feeling inspired right now. So wait, let me ask you this too. So do you feel that the attribute of self-discipline came easy for you? Does that come natural for you, or is it something that you've had to work on over time? And do you have shining examples of that self-disciplined person that you're like?
I'm naturally self-disciplined, which is why I was able to do independent study even in high school, and because the reason I did independent study was I would in school, when I was physically in middle school and in high school, I would finish my homework really quickly and then be sitting there wasting time. And I was like, I could be out auditioning, I could be working right now, but I'm sitting here in class done with my work. So doing independent study was a really fast track way. I finished high school early and then started college early. So and then this is not like a brag or a pat on the back. It's just to explain my natural inclination from a very young age is I multitask super well and I work really fast. And the way that translates now is I can direct a short while I'm choreographing for Camila Cabello in New York and Toronto and traveling to China and fly back and be able to manage many things at once. The Dancers Alliance stuff, 90% of the stuff I did for the big campaign we did, which was unionizing music videos, was done when I was on the road, and I was planning events and talks and writing speeches and making PowerPoints when I was in China with the time difference of calling people here in the middle of the night and doing all of that kind of multitasking and self-discipline. It comes in really, really handy when you're trying to take action, because part of what you were saying is that there's a lot of talk about things right now, and that's always how it is. People have, especially in the dance industry, lots of gripes and complaints about things, and my inclination naturally is not to gripe but to do something. So whether it's why are our rates the same on music videos and they've been that way for 30 years? Why are we not unionized? I don't just sit and complain about it. I go, well, what do we need to do about it? And usually I know, again, it's the critical thinking, and it's kind of like ethics courses that I would take in college and stuff like that, and in philosophy. All of those things kind of come into play when you're going like, okay, so let me think critically about this. What is in our way? What can we do about it? And then if I have an answer to something, I can't just sit and not do something about it. And then the exact same thing happens with teaching. If I'm going, because I was the bitter old school person several years ago going, this is ridiculous. Class is an abomination now.
You were.
And
Okay.
I hated it because I grew up, like I said before, class was a sacred place for me. It was so different back then, and the fact that it was being just chopped and mutilated by social media, it felt like a personal loss that wasn't the case anymore. But again, it's like, okay, so what am I going to do? When I teach class, I'm going to make sure in my classes I run it exactly how I want it. I'm teaching you exactly how I want to teach you, because what else? That's what I have control over. And that's also, I'm trying not to legislate what other people do in their classes and not say, well, yeah, all teachers have a responsibility to do XYZ, because you can't legislate people, and all I have control over is what I do. And so I'm going, no one teaches anybody what to do on a set. So I'm going to provide an opportunity for people to know what to do on a set. So no one knows. I'm running auditions and no one knows what to wear to an audition. I'm having to cut half of you because you don't look right and you don't have your headshot right, but nobody's telling you. So I'm going to tell you. Instead of complaining about it, I'm going to tell you. So
it's perfect.
So the self-discipline comes in specifically in examples like that, in being able to multitask and direct something while I'm working for an artist, while I'm teaching and traveling, and in being able to do things that are on the side to simply help people as a passion project, as Dancers Alliance was. It's a passion project. So there's no way on earth you can tackle something like unionizing music videos without being really self-disciplined, meaning on the side in your spare time while you're working professionally. There's no way on earth you can do that without having good self-discipline and time management and being able to multitask.
But as you see, it is absolutely possible. It's not impossible by any means, right? You need people, an example right here.
Thank you. But this is not to say that I don't always have people helping. Dancers Alliance was not just me. It was many people involved that were all working together, but you need somebody that is the linchpin that holds everything together, and that person has to have good time management and be self-sufficient. Because what happens is if you don't have somebody that is like that, everybody's really passionate for about 20 seconds, and then you all go, good meeting, see ya, let's get that done next week, and they all leave and take class, or leave and go on tour, or leave and nothing gets done. So somebody has to be the person that goes, that's great, sounds good, and then I leave for 3 months to China or something, but it doesn't fall through the cracks.
Got it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's my spiel about.
And honestly, listen, that speaks a lot about your character too, and also how you have made what it seems like a seamless adjustment into what the landscape is now for, and the opportunities of being able to put your art out. Because we fast forward now, you've done many, many professional jobs of all aspects, but now you actually are doing it seems like you found a perfect way to do your social media and get your art out on social media the way that you would like it to be put out. Is it because when I look at your stuff, it has integrity. Do you know what I mean? This is no shade to anyone at all, but what I'm saying is this: there's never been a project that I have looked at that you have done, whether it be strictly for your YouTube channel, like the projects that you've done with AJ, the ones you did with Lyle and Devin, right?
Yeah.
Even fast forward to things like you have Campfire Vaudeville, you have the newest short, Wait For Me, that you just did, directed in 2 days, by the way. I mean, can you talk about what that transition was like for you, when you figured, okay, this is how I'm going to use my Instagram to promote from my YouTube, and on my YouTube I'm going to use it exactly like this. What was the transition from being the bitter, what the hell is going on in our dance world right now, what's happening, into, okay, here are my action steps, and I'm talking about specifically just for like social media and YouTube and all that, and then we'll kind of get into what that has led into.
Yeah. So when I think this might have only been a year. This was only a year ago, because everything that I've done on the viral stuff on YouTube has only been this year, for like the past several months. So it's been a very short amount of time.
Shout out Human. Shout out Human. Shout out River. I remember Tim Milgram DMing me on Instagram, and he's like, "Oh, we should shoot something sometime." And I didn't have any class videos, and I was like, "That's not really my thing." I just didn't get back to him because I was literally, I think I just arrived in London or Amsterdam to do a TV show that I was working on over there. That I was gone for 3 months, and so I just didn't really think about it because I wasn't here to do anything with him anyway. During the course of that job, and this is what I was talking about with overseas and how much they look to LA, not just the States, but LA. All of the dancers that I had on that job, I saw what class videos meant for them. Right. Okay.
And just the greater dance community overseas. I hadn't really heard people speak about, oh, did you see, actually seeing them going, did you see this video, And I realized for them it's not gross. In LA it's gross for us OGs. We were like, this is so gross. We just everyone wanted to throw up when we saw class videos. But for other people, it really was their only way of seeing what's happening in LA.
Okay.
And after being around it for that long of an amount of time, when I got back, I was so just ready to show people like that. When I teach classes, what I'm doing in class, and to share it in that sense. And Tim had already hit me up, so I was like, this makes sense right now. I am so excited to, especially with heels, show a different approach to what a heels routine can be.
Yes.
And I had enough people that had done what were only heels intensives prior to that. I didn't have the Galen Hooks method. It was just kind of heels intensives to help women understand who they are.
Right.
And so it felt like it was just a perfect it wasn't like I was sitting back going like, you know what, I need to get my social media game up,
right,
you know,
right.
or like,
Yeah.
or like, let me see how I can like tap into this thing. It was
Of course.
all, and everything I still do is all about when I'm doing class videos and social media stuff. Because if you look at anytime I post anything of me dancing on my Instagram, there's always like an explanation in the caption of so the reason that I'm doing it, because like I said before, for me, it's not about the choreography. So when when I taught River, it was so strategically choreographed for educational purposes to push people training wise. Not thinking at all like this is a viral, you know,
of course,
you can't.
And I think it would be hard to create within those bounds. Saying,
although some people do.
And shouts to those that do, because I just feel that it's, for me personally, it would be hard not to get in the trap of going, okay, well, if that worked.
Exactly.
You know, if that worked last week,
the
right, then maybe I need to do something in this vein, because the week before I tried something totally different and it was a miss.
Right? Exactly.
So you kind of get caught up in this thing. But what I really love about what you are doing and what you have done is it seems like you have done a masterful job of having a setup of after you get the views, sorry, I got to get through this, but like after you get the views, they have somewhere where you can go, and it's not just about being popular. It's not just about being called out in the specialty group. But like you said, there are educational benchmarks in every single one of your classes. So every time a student walks out of your class, they should walk out actually a better dancer, literally. You know what I mean? Not just having memorized the routine, but taking a tool with them that they could probably use at auditions, probably use in their next class, in rehearsal, all that. So can you speak to the importance of, and this kind of reflects the question that I had, a little while ago about a teacher's responsibility, because the reason that comes back up is with so many eyes now. That means so much attention. And, you know, when you have that attention, you can almost give rules and have people accept them blindly, to be quite honest. Right? You can say, this is law, and there's a good majority of people that'll say, you know what, you're right. She has so many views. You know what? She's absolutely right. So how did you find the balance of saying, okay, there's a lot of eyes on me right now, and I'm not going to focus on keeping those eyes on me, rather than what is the message that I have to pass on now that I have this intention? How did you dodge the trap of seriously, how did you dodge the trap of trying to stay viral while having viral videos?
I mean, I made decisions that very clearly were not for being viral. I mean, even River was not a hit song. Like nobody.
It is now.
It is now. It is now, but like it wasn't a hit. It wasn't like, there was certainly nothing like gratuitously sexy in the choreography. So I never I think after that I did Love on the Brain, which again, like, I mean, it's Rihanna, but that wasn't like a huge single, and the routine is certainly like very cerebral and not catchy. There's nothing catchy about it. So, you know, I'm going like, I don't know if anyone's gonna watch this thing. Like, who knows? Who knows? But that's not all I'm thinking about is like, this is going to be a good routine to teach people XYZ. Like, human is a good one to get people to work on character and to try, because I didn't want people, I'm really tired of, this is me venting, I'm tired of women trying to be sexy in their heels choreography, because you don't need to try to be sexy if you're in a heel. You're going to naturally be sexy. So human was a good one to go like, let's try to like do character work in a heel. Let's see if they can do that. The Kiwi one I did for Harry Styles was like, let's do rock and roll. And I mean, I have like a whole spiel and inside look thing on that one, so I don't want to exhaust you with that. But all I'm worried about when I'm doing the combo is doing something where, exactly like you said, they'll walk out of the class a different dancer. And in even an hour-long class, there's so much. This is what I meant before by like, it's not about the choreography. I get the choreography out super quickly. It's not about the choreography, meaning I'm not demonstrating it for them to go, oh, that was so amazing. Like, that's not my intention at all. And so when I'm not worried about impressing people with the choreography and using it as a teaching tool, I think the people who come to my class at this point, I can trust that they're there wanting that and they aren't there to be impressed by the choreography. So I can treat them with the respect they deserve and go, okay, so we're going to push it here, here, here. And when you treat people that way, at least for me, just because I know that that's my clientele, you know, they're not, they know, you don't expect to dance to a top 40 song if you come to my class. So I know that I'm looking at a room of people that are going, feed us, we're sponges. So then I can really get into it. But I just don't, it's the same, I'm not sitting back. The reason I'm teaching the classes for the students, so it just doesn't make sense for me to think of whether it's going to be viral or not. I think what happens is if I'm thinking of good, if I'm picking a good song, whether it's a hit or not, and doing something that's engaging dance-wise still for the students, that equates to, for me, something that ends up being a hit, I guess I would say. Something that that gets a lot of eyes on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So it's a little bit backwards, but I think for me it's a different scenario because not everybody, I don't fault people that have to rely on, I wouldn't expect everybody to go, you know what, I'm going to approach class that way, because different people have different skill sets. And even if I tried, wouldn't be able to pick a top 40 song and do something super catchy that people are going to be doing, you know, I'm incapable of doing that. So it's just a different skill set.
Right.
So I don't, back to whether, what the responsibility is, I still don't fault people who go, I'm just picking the hot song that's out right now, because that's a skill that I don't have. I can't.
That is
it just doesn't come out of me. I don't know how.
That was a great other side to look at that though.
So I wouldn't expect. I wouldn't go to them going, you know what, you guys, you need to not pick top 40 songs, because I realize that's their income, right? We talked about this before. Everybody's running a business.
Right.
They're relying on that thing to be a viral hit. If I were in their shoes, I'd be like, I'm not using the Human record. No one knows that song.
Yeah, exactly,
you know what I mean? I can't gamble on that because my rent depends on me getting.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm also teaching. So I'm teaching much more infrequently than those people. So if I had a regular class every week and I was teaching every week and I was in their shoes, I would probably be a little annoyed if somebody was like, you know what, stop teaching a top 40. I'd be like, it's working though, right?
Right.
That's
absolutely.
what I mean.
Exactly.
People are voting with their views, with their money. So it's like, I'd be like, it's working.
That's very true. That's very true. But so can you speak to with that? Can you speak to longevity versus being wildly popular?
Yeah. That's actually
for a wildly popular for a certain span of time versus actual longevity.
Yeah. I think that's kind of why I'm a little bit passive when I'm I don't in response to the questions you're asking, I'm kind of like, well, I'm not thinking, and it's just kind of, I'm passive about it because I 100% realize that tomorrow or in an hour, I could not be popular anymore.
That's true.
I don't think that this is, I've made it, or now I'm a viral sensation, because the next 8 videos I put out, people could not care at all about. So I don't, I'm looking to being hot at the moment doesn't mean anything to me in the sense of it doesn't I don't place any value on it. It means a lot just in terms of I appreciate so much the response that I get, and when people are really excited, to me it means they're not excited about me, but they're excited about dance. I've got merch with my face on it, which feels really awkward, but I realize when people are like, "Oh my God," they're excited to wear the shirt. To me, not because they're fangirling over me, but because they love dance that much. So that's what, to me, putting out content that is about the dance and not about the attention allows me, when people are excited or want to take a picture with me or whatever, I'm like, oh, that means that you really love dance. Because if I were putting out crummy content, you would only want to take a picture with me because how I look or whatever, or because I'm famous or whatever, but I'm putting out crappy content, so you can't possibly, do you know what I mean?
Right, of course.
So for me, I feel like, okay, they really love dance, and that's what's exciting to me. So being kind of a flash in the pan, going for being popular at the moment, is just a scary way for me to think about it, because I don't like attention. That's my least favorite thing about everything that's happening right now, is that like when I go and travel, everybody wants to take pictures and everybody wants to see me demonstrate the combos, and I'm not, I really that's my least favorite part about it, because I don't want attention. That's also why I don't dance much anymore. I don't perform much anymore, but I realize that you have to demonstrate things sometimes in class for people to understand what you're talking about, especially because my musicality is really difficult, so I have to demonstrate it. But all of that is leading into me saying that I'm not interested in the flash in the pan, and I'm interested in the longevity, because I realize that it's not going to last forever. None of this is going to last forever. So for anybody out there that thinks that they're hot right now, it literally overnight can change, and then what are you going to do? So, and that's not to say that there are a lot of people who are super popular right now that have great business sense. And it goes both ways, because there are people who are industry choreographers who might be super hot right now. Not even in the viral, nobody knows who they are, because they don't have any class videos or anything. Might be super hot right now, but they might be a flash in the pan as well. So whether you're in the industry side doing film, TV artists, or whether you're on the YouTube side or social media side, we're in such a finicky business that is we're at the mercy of people enjoying our art. So if you're not thinking long term, you're dead in the water, whether you are a social media person who's 18 or whether you're 40 doing film, TV commercials. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Which makes branding so important, which which is why, t-shirts and tank tops with your face sells. It's not just because there's a love for dance, but because the love for dance, I believe, is built into the Galen Hooks brand. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if anybody, and you kind of said that anyways, that I don't know if anybody is going to come to your class that does not absolutely love what they're doing, because that reflects in your teaching and in your classroom environment as well, which I think is like one of the most important things. With that being said, can you talk about the Galen Hooks method for a second? Because we've kind of mentioned it a couple times, but for those that might be hearing about it for the first time, can you just kind of give us what the Galen Hooks method is to you and why it was important to you?
Yeah. So, number one, I called it the Galen Hooks method not to self-aggrandize, but because I want to make it super clear that this is only my opinion, and I realize that there are countless methods to this industry. So it's, again, like in the same way that kind of the class video thing happened more organically than me going like, let me get in the class video game. I think I just as I started teaching more, it's really, everything is in response to what the students are saying. So the students are like, we need help auditioning. I'm like, okay, because again, like I said, if I know the answer to something, I can't not tell somebody. So when they're like, we're not booking, and I'm going, I know exactly why you're not booking. You need to change this. Nobody's telling you. So that's how the audition intensive came up. The on-set thing was because people go, oh, great, you helped us book. Now we're booking. Now we don't know what to do on a set. They handed me paperwork, and I went, I don't know what to do with this. So I'm like, okay, I'll tell you, because I know everything about how to work on a set. So let me tell you about how to work on a set. So all of this has turned into, I put it under the umbrella of the Galen Hooks method, because this is my approach to the industry that focuses on maintaining yourself as an artist while also being successful work-wise. Because a lot of people, even people that are the most booking dancers, still feel like they have to sacrifice themselves sometimes artistically. And I feel like I have a good hold on, I've been able, most of the big stuff that I've done in my career has been while still being completely 100% artistically authentic to who I am. And not many people are able to balance those two things. And so if I can help people pursue their dreams as a dancer while also not getting stuck in being cynical, being jaded, being surrounded by the wrong people, all of that kind of stuff, because you know how many people have made it to the top, quote unquote, dancing for the artists they want to dance for a long time, and they leave the industry hating it. They hate the dance industry. They are bitter. They're jaded, all of these things, although they've reached their goals. I want people, number one, to have the experiences they want to have as dancers, because I had such a fulfilling a satisfying career as a dancer that when I hear other people go, oh, I wanna dance for this person, I'm like, I know how you can do it. Let me tell you how, so that you can have the experiences that I had. But it's not just about booking the jobs. It's about, I want you to have those experiences and still love to dance and still love to go take class, even though you don't have to. And still, when you're 60, be dancing and not leave this industry going, I'm done. The dance industry is so whack, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Right, absolutely.
So if I can help people love who they are within the industry, to me, that's so much more gratifying than just going, let me drill you on some choreography.
Exactly.
You know, because it's not about the choreography
Right.
in any of the sessions that I hold. The choreography is the least important thing, because there are other people who are doing such great work drilling choreography and intensives and doing repertoire and doing technique and building people athletically, physically, choreography wise. You know, like that's usually what people do in intensives is about the choreography. You're getting drilled. I'm doing everything else so that you can go to those people to get that very important skill. You have to be really good at choreography. But all the other stuff that no one ever teaches you, especially for women, although I just did my first men's session and that was incredible because especially for men, no one's guiding them on what you need to do with your face. Like no, you can't be too cool for school all the time.
Right.
And so they can't be versatile and work in La La Land, but also for Rihanna. Do you know what I mean? You have
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. There's so much outside of choreography. So the method is basically having integrity in yourself artistically and as a human being, because that's also extremely important. It's like a holistic approach to the art form and business of dance.
I love it, and it seems like there's actually it's the best of a lot of things, actually. Education being one of them, but then in a way, there's a bit of some activism in there too, right?
Oh,
because
for sure.
like just and like you said, it's a holistic approach. So not only are you creating people that want to succeed in dance and stuff like that, but you're also working on their person, which is amazing, which is an amazing quality for a teacher to have, which I think is probably a great transition into you working with the Dancers Alliance and the the Choreographers Alliance as well. Could you talk about those two for just a second?
So first I'll clarify my involvement with each. So Dancers Alliance, I when I was 18 joined Dancers Alliance in terms of the organizing committee, and slowly kind of became more of a chair of Dancers Alliance. But at first I was really learning the ropes from Tiffany Washington. Again, rest in peace. She was so instrumental in helping guide me in Dancers Alliance, and Allison Falk and Becca Schweitzer and all these people that I really, again, looked up to as dancers back then. To have adults like that showing the ropes was so much. So then I was the chair for a while, and now I just kind of consult. So there's a whole new team of people in there that are really fantastic and are more boots on the ground, because I don't know what it's like to be a dancer now. So there need to be people leading it who know the ins and outs of what it's like to be working on a set as a dancer now. So I'll consult with them when they need it, but they're the basic. If you don't know what Dancers Alliance is, follow @Dancers Alliance on Instagram, and you can check out the website, which should be updated. And if you ever have gripes about Dancers Alliance where you're like, oh, the website's not up to date or they haven't posted anything, it is run by people volunteering their time in between doing dance jobs. None of us are paid. It's literally people going, there's something that needs to be done, we're going to do something about it. So you have to give a little bit of like leeway for things to not be totally on, but we are liaisons between agents, union, production, dance community. So anytime there's like conversations that need to be had, like a good example is, and I wasn't directly involved in this, but this is like a recent achievement that they had, was for Trisha Miranda for her show on MTV. If there's something where it's like, this is new territory, we need to figure out what the contracts are going to be, etc. Dancers Alliance can be, and I'm not going to get in the ins and outs of what that was because I'm sure it's privileged information, but that's just an example of like a new show comes up, especially nowadays where it's like, let's say it's like, this is going to be shown in bathroom stalls and that's it. And it's like, well, what is this contract going to look like? And Dancers Alliance can step in and be the liaison talking to all those different parties that I mentioned. And then the Choreographers Alliance stuff, there was a Facebook chain that was happening talking about things that need to be done for choreographers, and no, in my generation, I've never heard anybody talk about things like owning our intellectual property, copywriting, residuals, having even things like getting paid for prep days, for casting days, for holding auditions, for meetings, for location scouts, things like that. But the big ones for me were owning our intellectual property, being represented by a union, because we're the only people on set not represented by a union. So so I got really heavily involved with Choreographers Alliance. There's so much that's being done on the front of unionizing choreographers, which, if none of this is making sense to you, if you become a choreographer in the future and you're getting residuals on things and you are on a SAG contract, you will have this generation of choreographers to thank for it. And it will literally change people's lives, because, you know, if you're on a SAG, like, people kill to be on SAG contracts. So, and if choreographers were on SAG contracts, their entire lives would change. So even the most successful choreographers, their lives would change, because it'll just change. I don't want to get into the minutia of it, because it's just not super fun to talk about. But yes, there were, anytime I have an idea or see a wrong that I know can be righted and I know how it can be righted, I take action to make it happen.
So here's a question. What is the, because it seems like there is a lot to embark upon, and there's been a lot of progress made, right? But of course, there can be a lot more support from the fellow troops that are out there, you know, still getting down, whether you're still working professionally right now, aspiring to be, or maybe even calling yourself retired. What is a way that people could take, what is a base root way that people can take action? So, and this is a question for those that might think, might have the perception that, like, oh, like, I don't know, that seems like so much, like, so what's something that we can all do to take action, small steps to take action?
Yeah. One simple thing is, if you ever see that Dancers Alliance or Choreographers Alliance are having a meeting, go.
Right.
That's a really big thing, because a lot of people will complain about things, and then we're having a giant meeting where we're literally talking about life-changing, career-changing information, and people don't show up.
Right.
So go to the meetings, and if we because most of the times they're live streaming things, because we understand that not everybody lives in LA, or they're gone on tour or out of town working on a job.
Right.
If something's being live streamed, stream it. Because what's lacking is education.
Right.
So if you don't know, there are a lot of things that you don't even know you don't know. So then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I'm being totally screwed over by production because of XYZ, because nobody told me. You'll find that information at a meeting. So go to the meetings. Follow them on social media, although don't be mad if they don't post anything for a long time. But when it's important, they'll post. When it's important, they might not say anything for 6 months, and then it's like, we're having a meeting, or we have a petition that's out. We need you to sign it. Sign it. Go do that. Anytime there's an ask, do the ask. And then just in your own life, I tell people the story all the time in the intensives of that when Beyonce was doing a series of music videos that were paying super low, I left the audition. Like, we were at the audition, and the choreographer was like, if anybody has a problem with this rate, just let us know, thinking that nobody was going to say anything. And I did the dance first to just get it out, and then I was like, went up and said, thank you, I can't do it for that rate. And when people hear that, I tell that story so that people know it's okay to stand up for yourself, because I don't care that I've never danced for Beyonce. I don't care. It's more important to me that I have integrity, and a lot of people have that switched. So if you know that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even if it means, because the question that everybody has is, but what if I don't work for that person ever again? What if that person's mad at me? What if da-da-da? And it's like, you can lay your head down at night going, I feel good about myself and I have values. So there are lots of times where I've had to fall on the sword for other dancers, have gotten fired from jobs, have been, like, just not blacklisted, but, you know, people are like, oh, she's a troublemaker because she's bringing up things.
Of course.
If you feel like you are being wronged in some sort of way, you have to, this is again going back to being a person as well, as you don't just want to be a successful dancer at the expense of who you are as a person. So if you feel like you're being wronged, say something. And there's a way to do it as an adult, as a professional, educated adult, and not being the bratty dancers on set that we get lumped
100%.
into being. But have a conversation with production, have a conversation with your agent. And there are so many examples of dancers who have stuck together on tours trying to get their rates higher. So many examples where groups
Shout
of
out
dancers.
Justin Timberlake dancers, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's an exactly perfect example. And what he's talking about is the dancers got put on a union contract. It's the first tour that was ever on a union contract.
Yes.
But there are many examples of when dancers get together, and when you have everybody in line with each other, change happens. So that it that's not quite a small tiny thing.
I mean, but it's
something
still,
that you have control over.
Exactly. It's something that you have control over, and it's also it still just kind of provides potentials, ideas, you know what I mean? Because I feel a lot of the times, because I know that I've also been guilty of it too. When I first heard about the Dancers Alliance, I was like, whoa, that sounds amazing. But how do I get started? Like, like I see that there's a line, but like what? So now what do I do if there's not a meeting going on? Not something like, oh, what can I be doing every day? But like, what is something? So I think that answer still provides a couple of things that can be done as opposed to nothing. Yeah,
right? and educate other dancers, because you're educated enough that if you were around dancers who were on a job going like, oh, they're turning this music video they're putting this music video into a movie or something where they're like, oh, should we do something? Educate people. So if you're a veteran on a set, tell other, because a lot of veterans are very possessive about their knowledge, but the whole boat will rise if everybody is more educated. So because then you're not the odd man out, because who wants to be the odd man out that's like, well, I have to ask for XYZ and I'm going to be the troublemaker. If everybody's educated, it'll be so much easier to get what you want. So that's the other thing, is to tell people if you know things that they can do to help their situation. Because let's say artist X is going on tour and the dancers are trying to get the rate higher. If you help them get that rate higher, when you then book your next tour, it's going to help your rate be higher. So if we all help each other, I think there's so much competition in our industry. But anytime you're helping other people, you're helping yourself, because it sets good precedent. If they don't get what they want, it sets bad precedent, because the manager of artist X also manages artist Y and Z, and you might go on tour with artist Z, and the manager's like, well, I got them for this amount of money, I'm giving you this amount of money. Then you're like,
right. You know? So it's taking more of the selfless approach as opposed to selfish.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Now, here is the last question, like to kind of wrap things up, okay? Where would you like to see our art form as far as a business, as far as an environment and a community in the future? You know, and I say that because we've kind of touched on a lot of things, but what is, you know, from the moment you started to seeing where dance has been, where it's gone, where it's going, what would be the ideal? What would be ideal for you?
I think, honestly, we're very close to what's ideal right now, because we have people like you. Like, you're a perfect example of someone who's you're not a dancer. You've made a living dancing and are as legitimate as actors, singers, whoever, as a dancer. And partly what makes me sad sometimes is when people are like, oh, I've transitioned into acting, or I've transitioned into, I want to be an artist, whatever it is. And I always I want to pose the question, if everybody got paid the same, if actors and musicians and dancers all got paid the same, or even better, if you got paid more to be a dancer than an actor or a singer, would you still be transitioning into acting and singing? So if we can not think of dancing as like a less than kind of thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Okay. Because everyone's like, I don't want to be a dancer anymore. It's not because, and this is why I tell people in the intensives too, is like, usually people fall out of love with dance because they're tired of the industry, not because they're tired of dancing. No one's ever like, I don't like to dance anymore. They're just like, I don't want to deal with what you have to deal with as a dancer.
Right.
So if in the future, and this is what I mean by we're not far from it, because there are so many people now that have on their checklist, I want to be a dancer. Right. Young kids that are like, I want to be Maddie, right? I want to be Misty Copeland. I want to be these people.
Yes.
And they're not worried about being an actor, because you have these role models now who are dancers who have made it as dancers. Absolutely. So I think that's the ideal, is that we are, that dance is not seen as a less than art form, especially because the proof is in the pudding. Dance is one of the most watched things on YouTube.
Of course. what is an artist show without dancers in it?
Exactly.
To be quite honest,
I know.
I mean, like some of the most spectacular stage shows, they have dancers in them, and without the dancers, it would be a drag, no doubt.
Yep. And
no
without
doubt.
the choreographer.
Absolutely.
That's another reason the choreographer's line stuff
Yes.
is so important. So I hope that we get some notoriety business-wise, because I think nobody has a doubt that dance is incredible. It's everybody will say like, "Wow, what you do is so impressive," and then they turn their head and they go, "But you can just like get paid $50 for it." You know what I mean? So no, I don't think anybody argues that dance is a beautiful art form. I think it's more that we need to legitimize ourselves business-wise.
Got it. Yeah.
And then in the community, I hope partly why I'm trying to educate people on what to do on set, how to handle yourself at an audition, all that stuff is because if everybody carried themselves differently, they would be treated differently. You would be treated differently on a set if all of the dancers knew what they were doing business-wise, production-wise. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
They wouldn't take advantage of you so much. So
Absolutely.
So if the community is more educated and more ballsy and smarter business-wise, I think that will help legitimize the business sense, so that they all help each other. So, but I don't think we're far.
I don't think so either. And I mean, especially we have people, putting not only the ideas out, but also the call to actions.
Yeah.
Those are coming out more often than not, actually, and it's kind of amazing. So you guys, we have gotten a lot of information right now, and to be quite honest, I'm still gonna say it's just the tip of the iceberg with her. Galen, where can we find you?
Instagram at Galen Hooks.
Boom.
YouTube, Galen Hooks. Twitter, I'm not as active on Twitter, but all the socials at Galen Hooks, and on Instagram at the Galen Hooks Method. So at the Galen Hooks Method is where I go like really in depth. If you are like really into dance and tips and really like fine-tuned things, that's where I go way more in depth on dance stuff. And then GalenHooks.com has all of my projects that I've done, and all of the stuff for the Galen Hooks Method. If you want to sign up for a session, there are tons of different versions of sessions that you can sign up for, and I travel all over the world for them. So you can find me in all of those places, the World Wide Web.
Well, listen, I know that I am speaking for myself, and I know that tons and tons of others agree with me that we could not be more proud of you. And not only just in all of the accolades, but Galen, just the knowledge that you're acquiring, but also spreading is absolutely priceless. And please let this serve as a beacon, as an example of what it takes to only strengthen our dance community and strengthen the art form. So Galen, thank you so much for coming by. Thank you. Galen Hooks, ladies and gentlemen. Come on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Awesome.